The Pitt will now be placed before the National Executive of the National Union of Mine Workers, which will appeal to the Coal Board over the closure decision. Elvin Thomas reports.
50 miners representing the 530 Wyndham Western men lobbied the South Wales Miners' headquarters at Pontypridd today. They wanted the local executive to back their argument that the pit should be kept open and allowed to develop the coal reserves to be found at the southern end of the Ogmore Valley. The Coal Board says the pit is finished and that the coal reserves available should be left intact for possible future development from the Margam pit. But the Margam pit does not yet exist, and the Wyndham Western men believe it's absurd to kill off their mine to preserve the reserves at a pit which may never be sunk if what they see as the present anti-coal attitude within the government persists.
We have vast reserves of coal, which the Coal Board themselves acknowledge. The only thing, we want the capital investment to exploit these reserves.
Tony Harris, the Vice Chairman, the coal may be there, but it's very, very difficult to get it out, isn't it?
Well, no, if they drive the headings, which were promised to us 10 years ago, we'll get the coal. No problems.
But there's no production right now.
No, the Coal Board have ceased production at our colliery, yeah.
Do you not think that this, then, is a bad case for the NUM to try and make a stand on?
Well, no, we are saying we got the reserves there, and we have the right to work them in the Ogmore Valley.
But, Donald, isn't there a price which is worthwhile paying for coal, and at Wyndham Western the price is too high?
No, not really, because by the Coal Board's own admission, there are reserves of coal there which they have now earmarked for the mythical Margam mine. Now, the Wyndham Western is a colliery in existence, and yet they're telling us now the reserves that were earmarked for the Wyndham a few years ago are now the reserves of the Margam mine.
It took an hour of hard talking to persuade an executive that's wary of backing any more losers to support the miners' case. But that support was given, and the full weight of the executive is now beaten. The NUM is wary because it got its fingers burnt over the fight to save Timawr Lewis Merthyr, a few miles up the valley from the Union headquarters at Pontypridd. For decades, pits have closed in the Rhondda Valley. But now, as the end of the line comes nearer and nearer, it's dawned on people that soon there could be little but memories to remind them of the passing of King Coal. And so the headgear and many of the pit-head buildings at Lewis Merthyr are to be left by the Coal Board. And it now looks increasingly likely that local efforts to set up a museum there will come off. But in the meantime, the place is at the mercy of scavengers, vandals and thieves. One of the group of ex-miners who are trying to prevent things from disappearing is Ron Clark, who worked for years as a shaftsman at Lewis Merthyr. He pointed out to me that what looks like rusting scrap iron would make an invaluable exhibit at his new museum.
Well, we have an RT George engine here, which was made in the Rhondda up in Pentra, and it would be a shame if somebody was to come along and take bits and pieces of it, because the engine would be ruined then.
Is that kind of thing, though, really significant and important for a museum? Because it looks like a rusty lump of machinery, doesn't it?
Well, to us, it does look a bit rusty now, but with a little bit of care and effort, it could be made to look a nice little engine, shined up. I'm sure there is plenty of people with a bit of elbow grease would love to do things like that, because it is part of our heritage of the valley itself.
But that's the kind of thing that a dealer or a thief could easily pick up and use for scrap.
Well, yes, there's parts of the engine, as you can see, there's brass on it and everything like that. Well, to try and replace that, it would cost more than the actual scrap value itself. And there are a lot of small pieces that have just disappeared off the colliery now. For instance, in the blacksmith shop, all the anvils are gone, and the swages and the sets. I mean, we'd like to have kept most of them, you know, like that. And there's that hand winch out there made by Brown Lennox. I should imagine it's well into the 100 years old. Well, it's still out in the open. You know, we'd like to get someone to try and collect up all these pieces to put them under lock and key or somewhere safe until the time that we can actually say where they're going to go.
This collection of 40 miners' lamps and other bits and pieces has already been promised as a permanent loan by a former Lewis Merthyr man, Ray Parr of Treallow. The collection includes this Clanny lamp, which predates the Davy safety lamp, and among the other exhibits is an interesting collection of lamp checks, the brass tags which told the lampman whether anyone was still underground. There are 22 snuff or bacco boxes, once standard equipment for miners. There are 17 brass watch cases, and even a commonplace miner's lunchbox and water jack. Now that they've been promised to the museum, they are safe, but that doesn't go for the historic equipment to be found in the winding house for the Trevor shaft. It was built in 1878, and the piston engine which powered the massive winding drum was installed at the same time. It's since been converted from steam to compressed air and is still in perfect working order. But to the uninitiated, it could be taken for a pile of scrap metal, and that worries Tegwin Davis, one of the driving forces behind the museum idea.
Well, very worried really, because I think so many people want to keep mementos from the colliery that they're just taking them, you know, haphazard sort of thing, with no thought that this mining museum may come off, or will come off, I hope, and then there'll be nothing left really for us to put on show, only what other collectors will donate.
The Coal Board, for its part, is cooperating in the plans to turn Lewis Merthyr into a museum. A bank of batteries and lamps have been left in their charger in the lamp room, together with the emergency breathing gear that each collier must carry. So the raw material is there, and the possibilities are immense, if the pilferers can be kept at bay.
If this goes, we cannot, it would cost, say, a couple of £1,000 to put a memorial stone up, but we've got it here. It's standing here all the time. You've got Lady Lewis, there's nothing at all. There's Watstown, nothing at all. You've got the all the Ferndale pits are completely gone. You've got Annisveyor, there's nothing there at all. There's Naval, nothing there at all. Let's try and keep this bit by here now.
We'll be reporting on the progress.